welcome to our first violin guest artist masterclass of the week. The first of actually many masterclasses this week, so it's a very busy time. We're all excited. Everyone's been working so hard this past week, and with the flurry of activities that we have, I know everybody is ready with their notes, ready to absorb information. And reminder to our participants of our discussion about etiquette last week, which you all followed to the letter. Thank you so much for doing that. We're very happy to welcome back again we have to sort of adjust that title now, but the first Associate Concertmaster of LA Phil, and soon to be, but probably already contractually, Concertmaster of Boston Symphony, which is my old stomping grounds, and in the grand tradition of Joseph Silverstein and Malcolm Lowe. Without further ado, Nathan Cole.
let's also. I appreciate you gave me a good view and everything, but it makes it a little difficult to collaborate, being quite so far away, and also if I stand here and I'm playing with piano, there's this whole wall of sound that's like washing over me. The piano's always going to be, the piano can play much louder than we could ever possibly hope to play. So we need a sympathetic partner, which we have. And then we have to be close enough that our keyboard partner can really hear what we're doing. Because there were parts of this where we got apart a little, and I thought you both had good ideas, but they weren't the same idea. So I'm going to put myself, I'm playing with piano, I'm going to be right about here. And then she can really, hear articulation, all those little clues that let someone know almost before we do it what we're going to do. So why don't you park yourself here? I'm going to be here because I need the music while we work together. Do one thing for me before we really get going. Could you play some up bows for me connected to down bows? Like, and let's make them on the E string. So you're going to start with an up bow. Yeah, the reason I'm having you start with up bow is that I want you to really feel like that up bow is the primary stroke, the primary bow. So if we're thinking that one is going to be active and one is passive, like the way I learned, it was always down bow, like, and my teachers would have to tell me, okay, don't accent all your down bows, and you need to make the up bows a little stronger. It's actually just easier if you turn it around and think of the up bow as the really active one. And then the down bow it's going down anyway, and so you can just release into the up bow. I'll get specific to this piece in a second, but at the end of every down bow, I'd love for you to crescendo for me. So again, start on up bows and just crescendo the ends of down bows. You're crescendoing the end of the up bow, right? Because you're going, could you do loud? So you're going to start out really strong. So this is going to be the strongest point right here. Yeah. Let's actually turn it around. I'm going to have you do it for you, it's the easy way first. You're just going to be like loud, soft, starting down bow. Yeah, so that's what I want, but now I want the bowing the other way around. Yada. So do a down bow with a crescendo. So you're going to start it quietly, and it's going to crescendo. Good, and then you're going to maintain that through the change. To my ear, you're doing a nice crescendo, and then it disappears again at the end. Yes, yeah. That is the first awesome bow change at the tip that we've had. And actually, I did a bad thing. I said bow change, and I don't even want you to think about bow changes, because it's really about what you're doing on the two bows. I love that up bow. I love the down bow that led into it. So when you're playing, I want every time you approach the tip to be like that. Can you do that slowly as I did? That's great. Keep going. Yeah. Yeah. What happens? Are you able to do that still, even when it's in tempo? Yeah. Whatever you changed to do that, that should be really the bread and butter of your playing. And we could have gotten to it by saying some other things, but you actually took care of all of those things naturally. Those other things would be like, oh, I want a straighter bow. Now you have a straight bow. And we didn't have to get into that. I want you to be closer to the bridge. Now you're closer to the bridge. But this is the kind of sound. So that's just for all of this. I love that, and it's also going to help project over the piano. And sometimes it's actually, I think, harder to project with a keyboard than it is with an orchestra, because it's all from one place and it's all the same kind of sound, whereas an orchestra, can be more transparent almost. Let's look at the beginning. There you've got a you got to bite a little bit more. Once on your own, and then we'll do it with her. And then on the eighth notes. Good. One thing with your bow and tighten it. I'll give you the test. I'll let you know. Well, before you tighten it. Ooh, that's a new bow or something. The test is if you put it at the tip and put some weight on it. Go ahead and do that. It should be almost impossible for you to get the stick and the hair to touch in the middle. I mean, you can do it, of course, if you really muscle it, but it should be, mine's a little loose too in this room. It should be very difficult for you to get them to touch in the middle. So maybe, yeah, that's about right there. Because before, they were touching all the time. In the middle of playing, and anytime you needed a bite, so you were kind of losing out on that ability to pluck the string. So, can you give me those starting up bow? Watch this. I'm actually finding the string between every one, and I'm about here in the bow. Your up bows are great. The down bows, you're still coming from the air. Yeah. So it's setting the weight and releasing it. You're already doing it for the up bow. Just do it for the down bow as well. The last one was from the air, but the first two are awesome. Yeah, I know right now you feel like you can barely move the bow. Get away from the bridge a little bit. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing. That's already better. What you can do on your own is to note by note, right? Let's do with keyboard now, and I'm going to be here, but you get almost in line with the keys. Yeah. That way the audience, if they're straight out, they can see both of you, but you're not in this is the death zone, I call it. Cellists always have to be there. Okay. So the very beginning, maybe just how many bars do you want before? What makes sense? 2, 4 bars?
Whatever's good for her.
Yeah. That's great. And you even did a great crescendo on the down bow now, which is great. For this main material, would you actually play your part right at figure 1 just by yourself?
Figure 1?
Yeah. So what? How would you describe this, or like what's happening in the keyboard part?
Like,
I mean, not a lot is happening.
maybe like a dance?
Yeah, it could be a dance. I mean, it's a without more context, it's a little hard to know what it is. I mean, even just in a simpler way, where or when is the keyboard playing? Like where in the bar? Is it a lot of complex stuff?
No.
Or is it in a strange place in the bar?
I don't think so.
No. Play it one more time. Yeah, she's just covering the beginnings of every bar. So what would be, if we just do the same thing, like if I play with you, if I just duplicate that, then not only is it, I'd call it kind of square, it's just not very interesting. And he's given us some more interesting things to play. So I want to bring out everything I can that's not the main beat. I do have one accent. That accent I've got on the beat. But the rest of the time, I want to be bringing out some other things. May I play it once more with you? So anytime, and I want to be bringing out pickups and ya-da-da-da-da. And now both of you together. So you can be lighter. It's even written leggero. You don't have to give us that because she's got that chord. But I really need. Good. And go on. Next phrase. You can just go from. Good. And even give yourself a chance to set it up. You're almost falling into it. That you can grab the 16th notes. So when I say grab, I mean almost literally grab the string. Just give me the 16ths. So, and then release it, yeah. Yep. Yeah, so. Nice, good. I'm interested. Some people would call it rushing. I actually think it's a good thing. At figure 7, when you play it, and probably you're hitting the gas pedal a little bit, but I think it's good. I would love to hear both of you though do it together. So get yourself back in a good spot. I'd say yeah. I think that's about right. And just make sure she can hear what you're doing. Let's. So she'll play the chord right at 7, and you come in the next bar. Yeah. I think that if you're going to be, for me, you're a little bit in no man's land with this bow stroke. It's kind of a light on the string. It's coming out at least as a light on the string. And I think it should either be, if you're going to be on, then be really concentrated as you are for something like that. But I think if it's going to be quiet and light, you may as well come off. And you don't have to worry so much about being quiet, just on your own. Yeah, just from... When you're playing how's your bow hand look? Yeah, I would keep it that same way. Good. Let me test this bow for a second. Still seems very loose to me. Yeah, look. Sorry. I promise I won't break it. It's got a price tag on it and everything. I think it's going to bounce a little more now. Yeah, so you can play, because the bow has spring, you can play basically down into the string. And if you find the right place in the bow, it'll spring back up for you. Yeah, try it even just like an inch lower toward the frog. Yeah, and you can put the energy, rather than horizontal, you can down right into the string. Yeah, see, that's going to be a more interesting sound, and it'll be a contrast. You can use a lot of bow, and then less bow. Let's do right at 7 again, so she has one bar. Yeah, just wait for her 8 notes. Digga, 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 da. Good. And now here, be sure about the rhythm. It comes out a little bit like a triplet. But good. And so now I want to mention, this is true for almost every violin concerto. We want to paint these big pictures and make things really exciting. Again, the keyboard has a lot more dynamic range than we could ever hope for. They can play almost as quietly as we can, and they can play like 10 times louder. So a lot of our excitement and shape needs to be sort of implied. It's a little bit of acting. So I have to remind myself the marking. So supposedly we start at mezzo piano for the, and there's poco a poco, crescendo, crescendo. Am I really going to be able to, how many of those are there? There's like 20. Am I going to be able to play every one slightly louder than the last one and keep it going and going all the way to forte? I doubt that I can really do that. And even if I could, it's kind of like watching a kid grow taller. Like you're not going to notice it day by day. It's only after you see them, after you don't see them for 6 months. So what I'm going to have to do, you did a great crescendo into here, and then I'm going to come back a little bit. And then when I reach the E string, I may come back a little bit again, because now the E string is going to be brilliant. And the big crescendo are these last 3 bows. And I'm going to use a lot more bow. Could you both do that crescendo together? So this is figure 9. And so give a big accent in the beginning. Come back. You don't have to like really act and do the whole crouching down thing. You can if you want. But all right. it's robbing you of the chance to get that articulation. And could you really, whatever she does, really let her lead the crescendo, like dynamically? So if she doesn't do it, you don't do it either. Okay. Well, one more time, just so that you can start. Did you know that when you're finally ready to really get louder at the end, it also gets faster? So you can play the 16ths fast, but give yourself a chance to really set. These, especially the up bows. One more time, but this was a great partnership. Good. So when you listen back, you'll see the rhythm is great in the beginning, and by the end, it turns into triplets. So just keep that same great rhythm the whole way. Let's look a little bit at the cadenza. Can I take it? There's a noisy peg. So everybody's already heard this before, not in this key necessarily, but that's okay, because now you're free from any kind of, interference or partnership with the keyboard. So because of that, you're saying it in a different way. So you can really start out, it even says sostenuto, but even if it didn't, you should do it anyway, like, hey, listen up, you think you've heard this before, but this is about to go somewhere else. So act more important. So the way that you play the long note, it needs its importance all the way to the end. Long note's great. And now those two notes belong together. Yep. Yeah. So then again, and then it gets faster. Yeah, I would keep the dynamic up. Because then you give yourself some room. He doesn't write it in until later. Can you just go from... So this is still fortissimo. Yeah, exactly. And then you've got the same thing again in minor. This next bit is another one of those where somehow we have to make people believe that it keeps getting more exciting, more important. So can you wait a little bit longer to get faster and louder? Everywhere else in this movement, you're doing a great thing. And here it's kind of ordinary. Can you... still snap it off? That's the idea. You can, the general tempo can be slower, but that rhythm should sound just like you're doing it. And then get faster. So I would keep it there. You never want people to feel like, oh, that's it, she's plateauing. you never want people to think that's a... And I'm making up notes, but... And then the retard really means something. One more time from here. Do you feel how it sits? Take a chance there. Yeah, we'll close with this. Give me your best. Good. So here's what's happening. Yeah, get that stick right over the hair so the stick doesn't ever touch the string. Yeah. Oh, there you go. So you're going to use this to keep the stick over the hair. Good, good. So keep practicing up bow first, up bow to down. Sounds great, thank you. Thank you both so much. great. So, you know, this is a, some would say this is a hard piece, right? There's a lot of difficult stuff in it, and you make so much of it look easy. But this will be more interesting and more, it'll hang together a little bit better if the so-called hard parts and the so-called easier parts have a little bit more in common pulse-wise and temperament-wise. I mean, of course, there are sweet parts to this and more aggressive and all that. But right now, I find my interest waning a little bit in the singing parts, and even in some of the tough parts too. I don't want you to telegraph that they're difficult by kind of slowing down and playing them more carefully. You know, the fact is I had to remind myself what's the tempo marking. It is non troppo, but it is allegro. And I felt like this took a long time to wake up. You know, when I was growing up, my teacher said, okay, you have to listen to the Heifetz recording of this. And I did. He said, and I'll caution you, a lot of it is faster than other people, but he told me sometimes parts that other people thought Heifetz played too fast, he was just reminding them how the music was supposed to go. So, do you mind just playing I know you came in halfway through or most of the way through the 2D. Would you play the very beginning of the piece? That's how the piece goes, more or less, right? And of course, we've got freedom when she starts, and we're going to come in the first entrance, but there's no reason that it needs to. I'm exaggerating, but if it's two, that gives us something. Ba-bum. At least we can base what we're going to do on that, and you take time within that. But would you give us the last 4 or 5 bars? Almost been 2. This is a surprise, so let it sit there. Slowing it down. I think you were building something that was great. By the way, intensity on the note that fits is what? The note that fits the chord. Can you play your last chord that you hold? So which notes that you're playing fit and which don't fit the chord?
Oh, I would say this.
Yeah. So which ones don't fit?
Well, the first one.
Yeah, and that note is?
The A.
Yeah, so all the A's are the decorative notes, so those need to really be the most intense. Once by yourself? Well, that's fine. It's a little bit of a crash landing, this verse. You're using like half the bow. Yeah. So that's one energy. This one is going to keep going. And ba-bum. Yeah. Just realize that the habit is, once you get comfortable, it just sits. Yeah. Better would be, if you want to take time at the end, that's okay, but not like the last 8 notes. last two notes or something. The last one, yeah. It's a crash landing.
You want it on the G string or?
Well, you play it however you like, but never with a crash.
Oh, yeah.
Give me, at some point during that, give me, this is going to come out sounding funny, but give me two notes in a row that aren't exactly the same speed. So you can take time, you can move forward. But if you're going to take time at the end, you've got to move somewhere in the middle. Keep going, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's great. Sorry to make you start at the high note. Yeah. And that's the tempo. Now there's a little too much effort involved in this. So roll it a little more efficiently, a little sooner in the bow. Good. And a little bit of what we were talking about, not us, in the Kabalevsky. A lot of the time, your stick is rolling over.
Yeah, this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, if power, if it's a place that needs bow weight, and some places do need, the so-called vertical weight, then we've got to keep it aligned. Otherwise, it's going to spend a lot of effort. So. Otherwise, this takes forever, right?
Yeah.
And nothing really is happening musically, so. Sorry if you want to take time at the end, again, that gives some momentum. So. Play together. And so now an allegro tempo, it doesn't have to feel exciting, it's singing. But those eighths have momentum. Back up just a little bit so that you can play together. Yeah. Rushing because you're not doing the sforzandi, right? So, yeah. It's for that reason that I like to keep that on the G, because it's easier to.
Wait,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, so really clear. Yep, good. And then go on, play the scale, and then could you both play together? So he'll give you the. Yeah. So this is a great tempo. but now the character of the bow within this tempo can be very, really sweet, right? I felt like you were kind of punching the top of that. From the open G. The D flat is important, but the beginning of this never, To my ear, there's an accent at every bow change. The D flat is important, so grow into it, and maybe that we come away from. You're doing such a dim that the up bow can't help but be an accent. Connects. Good. So together now from the low G. This would be the last thing I say about this particular part, but I just want you to, because this to me would be the key to all the singing parts. When you play together, this is what happens, and then those lose all character, and so that's why it doesn't connect. It's not about the bow change. Same with these four. You could have a different musical idea. You could say, I want these to grow. And then that could sound beautiful to me because it connects, or either way, but it's never a kind of falling off a cliff. One last time, this bit by yourself. Yeah. So to me, the way to work on this would be, I mean, it sounds to me like you practice scales in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in scales, to set yourself different challenges. The kind of things that sound simple maybe to a non-violinist, but pick a scale. Why don't we do B flat? And you're going to crescendo 4 notes and dim 4 notes. So it's 4 notes crescendo, 4 notes dim.
4 notes.
4 notes crescendo. So 4 notes to a bow, and you're going to crescendo the down bow, dim the up bow.
Sorry.
But the last note is the quietest one somehow. Yeah. But that's why I say it sounds easy to a non-violinist. It's hard to do. The up bow is not a satisfying dim. You can take it easy. It sounds like a very sudden and dramatic crescendo. Just make it simple, yeah. Can you see how that last note on the down bow very often disappears or starts to dim? And that's something I noticed in the actual playing too. Quickly do the other way. Now start up bow. So it's 4 notes crescendo, 4 notes dim. So give me a dim on the down bow, but not a subito. Keep going. Yeah, so I'm hearing an accent on the first note and then piano. So kind of like forte, mezzo, piano, piano.
Oh, sorry about that.
guarantee, and thank you for having the courage to do that. Well, I told you to, but to do it in front of everybody. I mean, unless Heifetz has come back, probably everybody in the room is going to have difficulty with this seemingly simple kind of pattern. Can you imagine if you did this every day? I mean, you would just have so much control over every part of the bow. Simon Fisher has a great book called Tone that I love to practice myself a little bit every day for this kind of thing. Let's jump. You have a great staccato. Don't give up on it. Can you, first of all, I just want to see how you do it again. But also, without trying to play louder, don't hide it either. With the, yeah. When you get, so at a certain point of the bow, I hate to deconstruct this stuff because, but you're young, you'll get it back if I mess it up for you. When you get to the part of the bow, because you're, and then at a certain point, it starts jumping, which is great. At that point, though, don't try to rush through it and get to the frog, because it's not really going to work at the frog. But here, just keep it going, what you had. Yeah, yeah. So a great thing to practice would be just that part right when you get to, and you're probably going to be, it looks like you're probably more in the middle of the bow by the time you get there, right?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe a little bit here.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, and I would start it from off the string because I think that's how it's going to feel when you get there. Yeah. And just drift a little closer to the bridge because it's a short string. Yeah. That's great. Now the whole thing, and when you get to that point. Yeah, hey, that was almost great. And look, almost nobody can do that. So that's awesome. You know, who has that same style of staccato that's one way here and then starts jumping here is Augustine Hadlick, who's playing with us at the Hollywood Bowl tomorrow. But he has a video on staccato where he does that. Okay, we'll close with that for today. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
I finally wrote my first one at age, 45, last year, after promising that I was going to do it for 20 years. So you should, you should write one for this when you play it. One more bow to tighten today.
Oh.
Well, so what I'm hearing is that things look very nice, but a lot of the time the string just sounds like it's getting pinched a little. And I think it's because the stick, the hair, and the string spend too much of the time all three joined together. I want that hair suspended in between the two. So can we, use my test or some other test, but you shouldn't be able to touch the hair to the stick in the middle except with a fair amount of difficulty. Well, I mean, if you putting the bow at the tip, yeah. Are you're putting a lot of weight into it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. So I shouldn't really hear any kind of surface noise. Go ahead and give me a nice G, yeah. Yeah, and so the other part of that is that the slower the bow goes, the more it tends to want to dig in and choke that string. So when you've got a nice ring like that, you want to keep the bow going. So I'm going to ask you a lot of times, or maybe you'll get it right away, to really keep moving the bow in this. And even in some of the shorter notes and figures, where it might feel like you want to use less, I'm probably going to have you still use more bow. Just without keyboard for now, do you mind playing the opening? So I'm getting a little bit of a crunch right in the chord, and that just tells me it's too slow a bow, which is another way of saying not enough bow. It's allowing the hair to dig in so much that it's stopping the vibration. You can set with that weight, but then release it. Yeah, the first one was especially great. You set with some weight, and then just released it. Yeah, so I might not have said it in this way yet, but I think I've asked each of the preceding two people in different ways to start from the string, because then it's more like a pizzicato. It's possible, it is possible to do it from off the string. I won't say it's impossible, but you're getting not the best sound that you could. Give me something from the string. Yeah, so it literally means actually to, and then it's like a pizzicato. Yeah, and you can set with more weight than that. Yeah, see with the bow on the string, you can really change how close the hair is to the stick. Try it. Yeah, and so you can get it this close and then release. And then it's clean. It's a really strong consonant. It's probably not what I would choose for the beginning of this, but it is clean. And if I get it like halfway, that's still maybe more of a K than I want. But just a little bit. Then it's really up to me. Try just setting a little bit of give to the hair and then releasing. Oh, but then you lift it up. Yeah, and then you can really, yeah. So that's absolutely how I would start this piece. I mean, of course I'm giving myself some kind of breath, but then the bow finds the string. Yeah, and then the next note. That's great. And that's all the sound you're going to need.
Okay.
And I don't hear any pinching now. Let's play with keyboard. And can I also, here's where I would stand. All right, why don't you get here and I'll stay over there. All right. Good. Try the timing one more time, because you were all set to go and then it was from the air. Good. Thank you for letting us borrow you for the first one, this one, awesome. And then that had less bow, and the last one had the least of all. So I would, or whatever the bowing's going to be. Maybe the last one I have. Go from after the first note. Yeah. With those eighth notes, have you ever played those off?
No.
Try it once so that it sounds a little bit more like a keyboard. So just give me that figure. I like it. Go on actually by yourself. So these, I would actually use 2/3 of the bow and whole bows for those. One more time for good. Try it right here in the bow. Yeah. I'm curious, I won't make you change it for all time, but I am curious if instead of letting this dangle there, if it were a little bit more picked up into the hand so that this was all, so in other words, you're gonna pick the bow up. Yeah. So that it's closer to that. In other words, if I were so mean as to tape a ruler or something, that you would have basically one line from here all the way to this knuckle. Yeah, see, well, and even, yeah, yeah. As soon as you go to play, yeah, put the bow on the string here and rearrange stuff that, yeah, so maybe it has something to do with the arm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're able to do it right away. Now, when I play, I won't say that it's totally a straight arrow from here to here all the time, but it's closer to that. Quickly, I want to just mention something in the left hand. I want there always to be a little bit of daylight here. I suddenly remembered something I hadn't thought of in years. I remember, so I took Suzuki when I started, and I had a teacher who was always yelling at me not to kill the ladybugs. She said that the ladybugs like had a picnic in there or something, and so yeah, you had a lot of dead ladybugs. No, the reason is just almost nothing good can come of these joining because it develops tension there. So you have it great when you're up in 4th, 5th position. Can you just show me that? Because there it's great, and you can see, probably you can feel what it looks like there. It doesn't have to be quite as wide as that in 1st position, of course, but it's got to be something. Take that down to 1st, yeah. And so here's where you can decide, okay, well, do I want to have this daylight with the thumb here or there or there? I mean, things can be a lot of different ways and places, but one thing that will never be good long term is that. So just as if you put a 1st finger down for vibrato, let's figure out a way, I've got, something there. Yeah, so it's at this point there that I want it to feel a little freer. So it's getting rid of tension in the big palm muscle there. Yeah, so it can just be something that you keep an eye on with all the fingers, that you've always got a little bit daylight there. Can we go to and generous with the bow, okay? Together. It's right after your. I'm sorry, I don't have the music with me, so I'll, right there. So it's right there. These are great. And then it gets really concentrated. Just you. Yeah, it's especially the separate bows. Can you do that for me once? So you're gonna forget the first slur and just start on an up bow. So more bow. More bow on the separates. Yeah. So start here. Yeah, and then the next. Yeah. This is another casualty sometimes of when we think on the beat a lot. And then the little notes get lost. Instead, that those are important pickups. And there too. Just made up new Mozart. Can you go right from there to... Good. And keep that stick right above the hair. Good. And now I'm going to have you actually move out away from the bridge just a little bit, because it's an interesting thing, just the way the bow variables work, right? The faster you move the bow, the further from the bridge you can get, with some exceptions. So now that you're using more bow, you can move it away a little, and I think you'll get more resonance. Good, and get it all the way over to the D string. Yeah, in fact, easier to do if you get going early. Do it a little bit slowly like that you can move it over in advance. Yeah, so... Yeah, this is great. I'm trying to remember what comes right after this, so I need to... Good, we'll go from 138. So this is the... This is probably the sunniest, most easygoing part. And so here especially, make sure that the bow keeps traveling and that the hair is never trapped between the stick and the string. So right on that bar. I'm curious, in the Vieuxtemps I was very often asking for things to keep moving. In this part of this movement, this is the one part that seems to me, maybe you could use a little more breathing room. So what if it actually were just a little bit slower and maybe even lighter? I like the sound you're making now. So, let's see how that feels. if you, which is going to be more important between and, because you have these 4 entrances that are kind of stop and start. Is there one that's going to be the most important of all?
The last one.
Okay. And second most important, if you had to pick
Second
one.
to last, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about between the first 2?
The second one.
The second one's more, so they're each going to get more important?
Yeah.
Okay. So rather than just giving a miniature version in the bow, you can play lighter, but still, it's a little bit like a stage whisper if you had to project a whispering quality to a larger room. Can we start right, what you have right before that first one? So let her play one. So for this rhythm, and we were doing this in the Kabalevsky too, you have to grab the string every time you have a little note, and then that note belongs to the next one. Ba-dum, ba-dum, bum, just on your own. So give yourself time to grab for the little one. Yeah, that's it. So that rhythm is always really tight and efficient like that, and then you just reduce the time in between them. And then get us back to the beginning. Do your little cadenza there. That's sounding a little bit. So I think if you're going to do that all in one bow, then it doesn't need to be as loud.
Okay.
If you want to keep it loud, then I would change bows because I don't think it's enough. Let's hear it. Good, and then once you start changing, then just use more. One last time. Yeah, so what I notice when the notes get quicker, bow wants to be more efficient. It's not always a bad thing, but it does change the quality of sound and sometimes makes it hard to hear. So I would keep singing it out, even the fast notes for them. All right, thank you so much. And thank you to our keyboard player as well, for everybody. Who has worked on each of the pieces that we've heard today? Who's played the Kabalevsky? Yeah? And how about the Vieuxtemps 5? And besides the one who played it. And Mozart 3? Yeah? So that's great. A lot of pieces that folks haven't gotten to play for themselves. And for those who played today, I'm just curious, are these pieces that you had ever shared publicly before Kabalevsky? Sort of? Semi-publicly? How about the Vieuxtemps? Okay. And how about this Mozart? Okay. Because there are some things I think you can only learn by performing. And I almost never really know how something's going to come out until I've played it for people. And the more times, the better. Yeah. Are there any sorts of kinds of questions that you wanted to get into?
You mean me personally?
Yeah, or for the group. For the group, I don't know what sorts of things you've been talking a lot about.
We've been talking about, you addressed some of them. We've been talking about tension and playing. I think nerves maybe. So I didn't mention, tomorrow evening is their solo repertoire showcase. So everyone will be playing their solo pieces tomorrow.
Oh, great.
So maybe some ideas
I think it's a great time to refresh your memory about how you want the music to go. I feel like a lot of my life and a lot of my time in the practice room, of course I'm unhappy about how something sounds, right? Or I know I want something to be better than it is, or I want it to be a little bit better than it was yesterday. And sometimes I lose sight of the goal. Like, this is how I actually want it to sound. And the funny thing is, when I start thinking that way, a lot of times the path to get there is shorter than I had made it. It's a little bit like, right, if you imagine some animal that was trying to get, like a little insect or something that's trying to get from here to that microphone, and they're like, God, to get there I have to do this, that, and the other. And first I have to cross that board, and then there's this knot I see in the wood, and there are all these difficulties that start getting built in, when it's like, if I just started walking, I'd be there in 10 seconds. I'm not going to say it's like that all the time in the practice room. There are actual difficulties sometimes that we have to solve, but sometimes if you want something to go faster, it can just go faster, and you don't actually have to do more work to get it there. If you think something sounds boring or pressed, and you stop and you think, well, here's how I want it to sound, a lot of times you can just do that if you hold that as the goal. So I think these last 24, 48 hours are a great time to just remember what it is that you want the music to say. And it doesn't have to be super fancy. Probably all the pieces you're playing are really well written for the violin. So that's what I would focus on, and it's not going to be the last time you play these pieces. So you want it to go well, obviously. I always want every performance to be the very best I could ever do. But now I'm old enough, I know some are going to feel better than others, but especially playing something for the first time will teach you things that you can't learn any other way. So take it as an opportunity, and also as a lesson that you can't learn any other way.
How do you suggest to divide slow practice and performance run through, again, these last couple of days before?
At this stage, I love to do kind of 70-80% tempo practice with all the shaping. Like if I'm just thinking of the Vieuxtemps, for example. Vieuxtemps. Right. We have a passage like something like that. Well, that probably already was 70 or 80% tempo, because it goes faster than that. But I would do it with shape. And really just do that over and over to make it feel easy. You already played that part well, but it's the fast part that I could think of right away. With beautiful sound, with shaping, because a lot of times parts that seem to me to be difficult, I don't have to play them really slowly for them to feel easy. I just need to take a little bit of the edge off. And then a funny thing happens. For a lot of those passages, I realize, oh, you know what? 80% is right about the right speed anyway. If I record myself and listen back, the 80% with the beautiful sound and the shape is plenty exciting or plenty brilliant or whatever it is. Sometimes that's not the case. I say, well, I love this, but it does sound like 80% tempo. But now that I've taken away the extra effort or the extra tension or whatever it is, I can ease back into the 100%, and it can still sound beautiful. So that's what I would do. I don't do a ton of super slow practice at that stage, but I do a lot 2/3 tempo. Just one more thing about that, because I hope everybody here does slow practice. You could probably stand to do more than you do, because everyone can. But when you do it, make sure it's always with your best sound, and yeah, it's easy to write. You know, I'm practicing slowly, it's in tune, but not only is there no shape, but there's actually a lot of tension in that slow practicing. The fingers are moving one at a time. So in that same tempo, I want to use good sound, and then I noticed I had at least one note out of tune in that version. So when I played it slowly and mechanically, I could play it in tune. When I played it with beautiful sound and smoothly, I discovered a shift that was not in the right place. So if I can fix it in that mode, and many times over, then that has a really good chance of staying in the fast version. If I fix it slowly and mechanically, it may not translate at all when things go faster.
Go ahead, guys.
It's hard to be the first one to ask a question.
Well, while they continue to formulate their questions, can you tell us any thing about your new job, the process of going to Boston, or kind of anything you wish to share about that experience?
Sure. I mean, I can talk, you know, so the role that I'll have there, concertmaster, it's a funny job in a way because, you know, the concertmaster plays the violin solos that are in any orchestral piece. And that in itself is a strange challenge because who here has ever sat concertmaster or first chair in some kind of orchestra? And did you have solos ever in those pieces? It's weird, isn't it, to be part of the group and then all of a sudden it's like, now it's you, spotlight. It's almost easier, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's almost easier to just walk out and play a concerto start to finish than to be part of an ensemble and then all of a sudden the floor drops out and it's only violin and you have to switch roles and then switch back. So that is something, and I've had the chance to do it in a lot of different orchestras. This will be my first time to come in with that role. And that's a lot, I know that's a lot of what they were looking for in the long process they had to identify a concertmaster. They wanted to hear, I know, a solo sound that appealed to enough people in the room. You're never going to please everybody. That's something I had to learn during this process too. There's 110 people in the Boston Symphony, and there's a conductor, and they have administrators, and the people who play all the different instruments. Do you think they all have the same idea of how a Mozart concerto should go? Because I had to play one. And a Brahms concerto, and this piece and that piece. They've been playing this stuff their whole lives. They all may have different ways they like it, but there has to be something that everyone has in common that speaks to everyone, right? That usually is the quality of sound, that no matter what you're doing, unless you're playing a piece that asks for an intentionally ugly sound, that everything you do and all the dynamics and up, low and high on the instrument has that beauty that people can grasp onto. And then something to say musically, right? That there's never any measure that you play where people are scratching their head like, what was that? That didn't seem to connect this part to the other part. Or, that tempo just went all over the place. I don't get that. You want to build trust in people right away, especially if you're going to ask them to follow you, which if you're sitting first chair, you know, you need people to trust you and go along with you. If you look up and you see, oh, I can tell that conductor's about to really move the tempo, I need to get everyone's attention somehow and I can't say anything, so I'm going to sort of do a little bit of this to draw people's eye from the music stands. And if I do that, I have to know they're going to come with me because I've been right before. If you're wrong half the time, then people are going to see that sign and they're going to say, I'm better off just going my own way and following the conductor the way I want. So that'll be the challenge, and being nice enough to enough people that you don't make too many enemies. I guess that's another thing we could talk about here. A lot of you will see a lot of the people in this room for as long as you play your instrument. So, if there's any scores to settle, any apologies to make sure you do it before the camp is over. Because I've met people 20 years later, I'm like, it's them. That's right. I was at that camp with them, and I, stole their Diet Coke and never gave it back, and I never thought I'd see them again. Yes?
I was wondering what you do when you don't have your violin, like how you practice?
Oh, and I don't have it at all? Well, you do what you can do, which is generally looking at the music, and that can be a nice chance to look at the full music, right? By which I mean the score. So all three of you played concertos today, and all three have been, I think I may have been like at least your age, if not older, before I realized this, that all the concertos are not written for piano. That sounds obvious, but they're all written for a full orchestra with tons of interesting things happening, and I'm like everybody else. I get into the practice room and I want to play my part really well, and that's what I'm practicing. So if I don't have my instrument, it's a great chance to actually take out the full score for the Mozart thing. And actually Mozart wrote so neatly that you can look at his actual handwriting, the actual handwritten score, and you can read it just as he wrote it, and you can see, what does the orchestra have? And you can think to yourself, like, if I were in the orchestra, how would I play that? And when you start, and they're playing, is it all the notes equal, or is it kind of coming away? And guarantee every time I do that, I discover something. I'm like, why was I playing this way? When I see the whole context, it's clear, like this would be more interesting, or, there's a chord change here. I will say I was intimidated about doing that for way too many years, because I just thought, well, I'm not a pianist, so I'm not going to learn anything from the piano score. Or I'm not a conductor, so I'm not going to learn, it's going to be too much information if I look at a whole score. And once I started doing it, it was like, I'm not too dumb a person. I can read, I can't hear a whole symphony in my head just by looking at a score, but I can look and see interesting things, and it's so worth doing. So that's what I would do. And the other thing is to visualize, and this is a big topic, people do it in different ways, but to, in effect, imagine yourself performing. Usually it's the beginning or beginnings of sections, and imagining what's going to happen. And I'll warn you, most people hear that and they say, okay, well, it's easy to imagine a perfect performance. The hard thing is playing one. It's not so easy, actually, to imagine myself playing really well and really easily and in a really compelling fashion. Usually, even in my imagination, something is tense, or something is uneven or weird, or something goes wrong, something's out of tune, the sound isn't. So over and over, as I imagine, or what I call visualize, my visualized performance can get closer and closer to my ideal. And then when I bring it back, it's usually really obvious what I'm doing that's different from my visualization. So if I'd only been practicing, maybe I couldn't realize it. But after a visualization, repeated visualization, then I come back and it's like, oh, this is nothing like what I had in my head, which, so that can be a nice shortcut too.
timing works out, we'd love to